It glows at the end of the hallway, humming in the dark. This vending machine takes no coins. It takes your nights, your weekends, the version of yourself you save for people you love. Feed it your loyalty, and it returns one thing only: a feeling, a warm flicker that you belong somewhere. You stand there in the blue light, wallet empty, hands full of nothing, and you keep coming back. Rewind to 1994. A senior HR consultant publishes a quiet paper arguing companies should cultivate a family culture to cut voluntary turnover. It is not brilliant. It is not even original. It is simply useful to powerful people. The insight is blunt. Emotion is cheaper than money. If you can make staying feel like home, you never have to compete on salary again. The paper circulates. The idea takes root. The math is embarrassingly simple. If quitting feels like betraying your family, you are measurably less likely to leave for a better offer. Studies put the loyalty discount at 5 to 10% of wages, money you forfeit just to keep belonging. The competitor offers more cash. You decline. Not because the numbers favor staying, because leaving now feels like abandoning people. That single feeling, engineered on purpose, is worth billions. The phrase spreads like an infection. We're like a family here. By 2008, it lives in nearly every onboarding deck, slide 3, just after the logo. By 2015, it is the scripted interview answer, the thing candidates are coached to want. Nobody questions it. It sounds like kindness. It feels like warmth. But warmth, packaged and repeated by people who sign your paychecks, is rarely just warmth. It is a transaction wearing a smile. Then Gen Z arrives. They look at the offsites, the town halls, the culture decks, the Slack channel literally named Good Vibes Only. They watch the ping-pong table installed where a raise should be. And quietly, without slamming any doors, they say no thank you. They do not rage. They do not lecture. They simply decline the feeling and ask, politely, what the role actually pays. The machine has never seen this before. The corporate reaction is loud and instant. Entitlement, laziness, screen addiction. They can't tolerate hard work. They want trophies for showing up. Op-eds multiply. LinkedIn fills with managers grieving for a work ethic that supposedly died. Every diagnosis points at the worker. Every diagnosis assumes the young are broken, and in all that noise, one question never gets asked out loud. The only question that actually matters. So ask it. What if it isn't entitlement? What if Gen Z is the first generation in 30 years to read the incentive structure correctly and actually run the numbers? They grew up watching the 2008 layoffs hit the family. They have salary data, Glassdoor, group chats. They can see the exchange clearly in real time. Maybe they are not refusing to work. Maybe they are refusing a bad deal that older generations never got to see. So let's reframe the villain. The problem was never the generation. The problem is the machine, the system built to convert your identity into someone else's margin while paying you in atmosphere. Over the next 20 minutes, I'll show you exactly how it works, where it came from, and what it quietly cost the people fed into it. Not opinion, mechanism. Once you see the gears turning, you cannot unsee them. Start with an honest machine, a real vending machine. You put in a coin, a product drops, the transaction is legible. Both sides know precisely what changed hands. $1 for a soda. No mystery, no guilt, no speeches about being a family. When the soda's gone, you owe it nothing and it owes you nothing. That clarity is the whole point. Remember this feeling. It is exactly what the loyalty machine is designed to destroy. Now the loyalty machine, it takes your identity, your sense of purpose, your social life, your off hours, and your willingness to ignore a competing offer. It accepts all of that. And in return, it pays you in belonging, in being seen, in mattering, in the feeling of home. Not money, belonging. The exchange is deliberately blurred so you can never quite calculate what you gave or what you got. That fog is the product. Here is its single fatal weakness. The machine works only while you believe the exchange is fair. Belief is the power cord. The instant you stop believing the belonging is worth what you surrender, the gears keep turning but produce nothing. No outrage required, just quiet disbelief. And that is precisely what happened. Gen Z looked at the trade, did the arithmetic, and stopped believing. The machine still hums. It simply stopped working on them. But to understand the machine, we have to find where it was built. So rewind, not to Gen Z, not to the 2010. Go back 45 years to the early 1980s when the social contract between American workers and employers began to shift in almost total silence. No announcement, no vote, no headline. Just a slow, deliberate change in the deal, one clause at a time, while almost nobody was watching the fine print. The old deal was colder, but far more honest. You showed up, you performed, and in return you got steady raises, real job security, and a company-funded pension waiting at the end. It was transactional. Nobody called you family, but it was real. The promises were written down and largely kept. You traded years of labor for a guarded future. Hard, unsentimental, and clear. Both sides knew exactly what the handshake meant. Look at post-war America, roughly 1945 to 1975. The deal held. Workers gave labor. The economy gave back stability. Productivity and wages rose together, almost line for line. A single income could buy a house, raise a family, fund retirement. Onions had teeth, pensions were standard, and a high school diploma bought a middle-class life. For 3 decades, prosperity was genuinely shared. It was not utopia, but the contract was real and it was honored. The first rupture came quietly. In the early 1980s, the pension, the defined benefit plan, promised you a fixed monthly check for life, calculated and guaranteed by the company. Then it began to die. In its place rose the 401k, a defined contribution plan. You contribute, you choose, you carry it. The word guarantee vanished from the contract, and almost nobody noticed the day it disappeared. Look closer at what actually moved. Under a pension, the company bore the market risk. If stocks crashed, the firm still owed you. The 401k reversed it. Now the worker, with no financial training, no analyst, no fiduciary watching their back, absorbs every crash personally. The pension was a liability on the corporate balance sheet. With one quiet swap, that liability evaporated, transferred onto millions of kitchen tables. Here's the part almost no one knows. The 401 was never designed to replace pensions. It was born from an obscure subsection of the 1978 tax code. Section 401, paragraph K, meant for executive bonus deferral. In 1980, a benefits consultant named Ted Benna read it, spotted a loophole, and built the first plan. An accident, a clerical footnote that quietly reshaped retirement for over 100 million Americans. The second rupture was philosophical. In 1970, economist Milton Friedman declared the only social responsibility of business is to increase profits for shareholders. For a decade, it was theory. Then the 1980s leverage buyout wave turned it into a weapon. Corporate raiders loading companies with debt, stripping them, demanding returns. Profit was no longer one purpose among many. It became the sole purpose. Everything else was redefined as sentiment. The consequence followed with cold logic. If profit is the only purpose, then paying workers even slightly above market rate is no longer generosity. It is waste, a leak to be sealed. Layoffs stopped being the last resort and became a routine instrument, a lever pulled to lift the stock price. Mass restructuring went quarterly. The annual report learned to celebrate the cuts. Efficiency wore the mask of strength. The third rupture is the one you can measure. Starting around 1979, American productivity climbed relentlessly. Workers producing over 60% more value per hour. But typical worker pay, adjusted for inflation, stayed nearly flat. The Economic Policy Institute charted the two lines splitting apart like a widening wound. The extra value you created didn't vanish. It flowed upward, past you, to capital. The deal had quietly broken in half. Now the architectural twist, the heart of the machine. As the economic deal grew colder and harsher, something strange happened to the language. The corporate voice got warmer, softer, more intimate. Just as your pension died, your risk multiplied, and your wages froze. The office began speaking to you about belonging, about meaning, about home. This was not a coincidence. It was a substitution, engineered to fill the space the money left behind. Listen to the vocabulary that rose to fill the void. Community, team, mission, values, passion, each word warmer than the last, climbing toward the final and most powerful one of all, family. We're a family here. Psychological value was quietly substituted for material value. They could no longer give you security, so they offered you belonging instead. And belonging, unlike a pension, cost the company almost nothing to print. And here's why it worked so terrifyingly well. Companies did not manufacture the need to belong. They couldn't. The need was already there, hardwired into every human being who has ever feared being alone. It walks through the door inside every new hire on their first nervous morning. The machine didn't build the hunger. It simply found it, named it, and quietly pointed it at the logo on the wall. And it felt real. That's what made it inescapable. The friends were actual friends. The mentor who stayed late to teach you really cared. The shared goal at 2 in the morning genuinely bonded you. The machine produced the sensation of family with perfect fidelity, locally and temporarily. The feeling was never the lie. The lie was the implied promise that the feeling meant the institution would protect you back. Now the silent extraction begins. The cost no pay slip ever showed. Every unit of emotional energy you poured into the workplace was a unit you did not spend elsewhere. The hours of devotion were hours not building portable skills. The loyalty was leverage you never negotiated. The identity you handed over was an asset you never owned. While you invested your soul into the culture, you quietly stopped building anything you could take with you. Then comes the subtler trick, the masterstroke. The machine made loyalty a virtue, not a transaction, not a strategy, but a moral category. Once devotion becomes goodness, something extraordinary happens. You begin policing your own loyalty on the company's behalf for free. You feel guilt for taking the better offer. You call leaving a betrayal. The most efficient guard is the one who believes the walls were his own idea. Then 2008, the first deep crack the machine could not hide. Companies that spoke fluent family, that hung the values on the lobby wall, laid off 20-30% of their people in a single quarter. No ceremony, no grief, often an email, a badge that stopped working, a security escort to the door. The warm language collided head-on with the cold arithmetic of the balance sheet, and the arithmetic won instantly, and the wound left scar tissue. 2008 carved itself deep into the millennial mind. The generation that watched their parents, the loyal company men, get discarded after decades of devotion. They never fully trusted the word family again. And this is the underrated truth. Those scarred millennials grew up to raise Gen Z. They taught their children deliberately never to mistake an employer's warrant for safety. The distrust was inherited on purpose. The lesson was never taught in words. No parent sat their child down to explain shareholder primacy or the 401k transfer. It transmitted through the air at dinner. The clipped voice, the second glass of wine, the story about the manager who smiled while signing the layoff list. Children aged 5 to 15 absorbed the bitterness without the vocabulary. They learned the shape of betrayal before they ever learned its name, and yet the millennials still played. They stayed 8 years where 4 made sense. They felt guilt requesting time off, apologized for leaving on time, used the family language back. We're all in this together. Even as they suspected it was hollow, why keep feeding a machine they distrusted? Because the exit door was welded shut. Distrust was free. Walking away was not. The fear outweighed the contempt. Look at the bars of the cage. 40 to 80,000 in student debt, payments due whether you believe or not. Healthcare welded to the job quit, and the insurance card dies with the paycheck. Rents climbing faster than wages every single year. Believing the family story was always optional. Needing the next deposit to clear was not. The machine didn't need your faith. It owned your survival. Then comes Gen Z and something breaks. Understand this carefully. They are not braver. They did not inherit more courage or stronger spines. 3 structural variables quietly shifted the entire cost-benefit equation beneath their feet. The math that trapped their parents simply stopped adding up the same way. The machine didn't get weaker. The ground it stood on cracked. Watch what changed. Variable 1, remote work. For decades, the machine delivered belonging through proximity, the shared building, the hallway, the after-hours drink. Then the pandemic ran the experiment nobody dared to run, and presence proved optional. The work got done from kitchens and bedrooms. And in doing so, it severed the primary cable through which manufactured culture was ever pumped into a worker's veins. The delivery mechanism collapsed overnight. Work from your own apartment and watch the family feeling refuse to materialize. There is no hallway to be ambushed with small talk, no ambient hum of belonging seeping through shared walls. The birthday cake in the break room, the inside jokes, the manufactured warmth, all of it required a stage. Strip away the stage and you see the truth. It was the setup, never the substance, just lighting and props. Variable 2, compensation transparency. For a century, the employer held a monopoly on a single deadly fact, what everyone else was actually paid. Then Glassdoor opened the ledger. Levels. FYI mapped every tech salary band by title and tenure. Strangers began posting their offers, their raises, their exact numbers on the open internet. The information asymmetry that powered every negotiation table quietly bled out. The house lost its hidden cards. And here is why opacity was never an accident. It was structurally necessary. You can sell a man the line, "Your deal is fair, trust us only," while he cannot check. The entire premium depended on him never seeing the comparison. But when anyone can pull up the median salary for his exact role in 30 seconds, the sentence dies in the mouth. Fairness you cannot verify is just a story. Verified, it becomes a number. Variable 3 is the heaviest. Gen Z did not read about the loyalty machine in an essay. They watched a full cycle run to completion inside their own homes. They saw the deposit phase, the parent who gave the company everything, the missed recitals, the swallowed pride. Then they saw the withdrawal phase, a complete loop beginning to end observed from the kitchen table over 15 patient years. The data set was personal. And what did the completed cycle reveal? Picture the horror frames. The 45-year-old, 18 years of loyalty, walked out by security in a single afternoon. The 401k down 30% the very year retirement was supposed to begin. And worst of all, the parent whose entire identity was the job title, sitting in a quiet house after the title was gone, no longer sure who they were. The machine kept the self. It returned nothing. So Gen Z reasoned backward from the output. The machine produced bad outcomes consistently across observed cases. Therefore, they lowered their estimate of its value and stopped feeding it. This is not laziness or fragility. It is Bayesian updating, revising belief in proportion to evidence. Their parents couldn't run this update because they were inside the loop, not watching it. Standing outside, the children could finally see the whole function and read its result. Now meet the objection head on, the one already forming in your mind. Isn't this just clever packaging? Aren't we dressing up plain laziness, entitlement, a refusal to work hard in the borrowed language of economics and rational choice? It's the accusation every older generation hurls at the younger. It deserves a direct answer, not a dodge. So let's stop telling a story and look at what the numbers actually say. Here is the data answer. When you measure Gen Z on the things that supposedly reveal laziness, productivity output, project completion rates, quality of finished work, the studies show no significant difference from prior cohorts at the same age. They produce, they finish, they deliver. The gap doesn't live in the work itself. It lives entirely at the margins, in the unpaid, performative, after-hours theater surrounding the work. That's the only place the refusal shows up. So name precisely what they refuse, because the list is specific. The 11 p.m. email answered to prove devotion. The performed enthusiasm in meetings that decide nothing. The fake meeting that exists to display busyness. Building an entire social life around colleagues who vanish the day you're laid off. And declining a better offer out of pure moral obligation to a company that feels none in return. Not the work. The ritual. They keep the labor and starve the machine. Understand the distinction because it is everything. Gen Z still delivers the labor. They write the code, close the accounts, ship the work. What they withhold is the loyalty, the performance of devotion, the staying late to seem committed, the pretending the company is family. The machine never actually ran on the work. It ran on the theater wrapped around the work. Cut the theater, and the machine has nothing left to consume. Here is the financial mechanism nobody names out loud. Loyalty suppresses price discovery. In a healthy labor market, your wage is set by competing bids. Recruiters calling, offers arriving, data accumulating about what you are truly worth. The loyal worker generates none of that. No calls, no interviews, no market signal. He has no idea his salary drifted 20% below replacement cost. The machine doesn't pay you less by force. It simply keeps you from ever finding out. Watch the year inflation broke 9%. 2022, millions accepted a 3% raise and called it generous. Do the arithmetic the machine hopes you never do. 3% against 9 is a real pay cut of roughly 6 points. Your money bought 6% less of your life. And almost no one pushed back because asking for more felt greedy, felt disloyal, felt like betraying a family that was quietly cutting your throat with a smile and a thank you email. Now see the machine for what it is, a financial instrument. Across major firms, analysts estimate the captured employee surplus, wages owed but never paid because workers stayed silent, at somewhere between $400 and $700 billion every year. That is not warmth. That is extraction engineered to feel like warmth. Precision accounting dressed in the language of belonging. The pizza parties cost a few thousand. The loyalty they bought was worth billions. The machine always knew the exchange rate, but resist the urge to draw cartoon villains. Most managers were not schemers. Many sincerely believed in the family, wept at layoffs, fought for their people, meant every word. That is the horror of it. The machine needs no conscious cruelty. It needs only an incentive structure that quietly rewards extraction and punishes generosity. Good people, inside a bad system, produce the bad system's output anyway. The cage doesn't require an evil hand. It only requires that everyone keep believing the door is open. So here is the reframe that changes everything. This is not a value shift. It is not entitlement, not laziness, not some moral decay of the young. It is a labor market correction. For 40 years, the loyalty premium, the discount workers accepted in exchange for belonging, drifted further and further above its true equilibrium. Prices that drift too high eventually find no buyers. Gen Z didn't change their hearts. They simply stopped paying above market for a feeling. And the data confirms it cold. By 2024, median tenure for workers under 28 fell below 2 years. External job changes deliver raises of 15 to 30%. Staying put earns you 3, maybe 4. That gap is not noise, it is arbitrage. Job hopping isn't restlessness or a broken attention span. It is a rational actor exploiting a price difference the loyal worker pretends not to see. Every jump is a correction the market was begging someone to make. Now descend to the deepest theft of all, the identity layer. The machine's true genius was never your time. It was convincing you to store your sense of self inside an institution you do not own. When you are your job title, when your worth lives on the company's org chart, you cannot negotiate hard because every demand feels like an attack on yourself. You stop bargaining against your own identity. The machine doesn't hold your salary hostage. It holds you. Gen Z's quiet revolution was moving the storage out. Listen to how they speak. Not I am a company man, but a designer who currently consults here. Not I am my employer, but a creator who happens to be employed. The identity lives outside the building, where the machine has no hook to catch it, and the language turns possessive. My skills, my audience, my craft. What is mine cannot be captured. The self walks out the door every evening, fully intact. Consider two men, same name, same start. Marcus A stays loyal, turns down an outside $78,000 offer, collects polite 3.2% raises, finally leaves at 28 for $89,000, net worth about $17,000. Marcus B treats himself as a free agent, jumps to 78, then 102, invests the difference, splits a rental property, net worth roughly $94,000. Same talent, same decade, same person, $77,000 apart. The only variable was belief. But do not celebrate yet. The machine breaking is not pure victory. For all its predation, it hedged real risk. It funded mentorship, preserved organizational memory, built the slow social infrastructure that turns a junior into a master. Tear it out, and something must fill the gap. Watch what companies are choosing instead. Contractors with no future, and AI quietly eating the entry-level years where skill is actually built. The cage is opening. What waits outside may be hungrier still. So here's the playbook. 3 moves you can actually use. First, switch your mental model from familial to contractual, and every 18 months, quietly run a market check. Take the recruiter call. Learn your real price. Second, build income and assets outside your wage. Non-wage money is negotiating leverage, the power to walk. Third, store your identity in portable skills you own, not in a title someone else can revoke. Own the labor. Refuse the loyalty. Stay free. Return now to 1994, where the machine first hummed to life. Understand at last what Gen Z's refusal really is. Not a moral stand. Not righteousness. A market signal. The asking price was simply too high, and the buyers walked away. But the human need underneath never died. The hunger to belong outlived the machine that exploited it. What fills the void now? Real community, or something more nakedly transactional under AI and gig work, is the question no one has answered. The vending machine sits dark,